One of my big things is first impressions, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the front door is the first impression. You touch and feel it. And,
Yeah.
Magby did a good job building the front door. It's 2¼ inches thick. When you open it, it's kind of substantial.
Yeah.
We're seeing crown molding kind of dialed back a lot. The crown molding in this house has a little bit different profile, and they were able to make that for us.
Yeah.
The design team really knocked it out of the park with it. We're process driven, so our clients tend to have a less stressed build.
Use the P word, processes. If you're going to win a business long term, especially with as much as goes into one home, but you've got 7 homes right here, you've got other subdivisions with homes going. If you don't have good processes and maintain them, it's tough.
Welcome to the Grit Blueprint Podcast, the show for bold builders, brand leaders, and legacy makers in the construction and building industry. I'm your host, Stephanie Couch, and I've been in this industry my entire life. Whether we're breaking down what's working in sales and marketing, new advances in AI and automation, or interviewing top industry leaders, you're going to get real-world strategies to grow your business, build your brand, and lead your team. Let's get to work.
Welcome to the Grit Blueprint Podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Couch, and I'm here today on site in Roswell, Georgia. Eric, welcome to the show. Eric is actually a builder here in Atlanta in the North Metro area, and he works with his company, Elevation Building Company, and we are here in this amazing home that's actually on the market. You just finished this.
We did.
And I want to just talk a little bit today about what you do. So tell me a little bit about who you are, how long you've been doing construction, and what you and Elevation Building Company does that really sets you apart.
My name's Eric Reidinger. I've been building since 2006. We started Elevation Building Company in 2017 with my business partner, Justin Mims. He come from corporate finance and accounting, so it just made sense for us to merge because, being a builder is like being a big bank, a lot of money in, a lot of money out. That really helps me just focus on the operations and the design and the building aspect of the company.
That is so two separate businesses. I've actually seen a lot of builders do one really well and one not so well.
Correct.
And so it's great that you have that partnership there with Justin.
Yeah, that always scared me about starting my own business because, the finance side is just very daunting.
So when you got into construction in 2006, what were you doing? That was a totally different time. That was in the big boom, the first boom in Atlanta.
Yeah.
What were you doing? Were you actually building homes then?
Yeah, I started out as an assistant project manager and then worked up to a project manager, and then a downturn hit. We didn't do much building during that time. We did a lot of renovation.
Yeah.
And then coming out of it, we started building quite a bit, tract homes and just bigger development projects. And then I changed companies and went to another builder in Atlanta to build a little bit higher end production homes before I started Elevation.
Okay. Well, tell me a little bit about the idea around Elevation. You guys are building, obviously, immaculate, beautiful custom homes. You guys own the land, and we're in a subdivision. Tell me about this particular subdivision here in Roswell and a little bit about what you're doing that is different.
I come from the production side of things, so owning the land has always been what we really are after. So I think what sets us apart is we buy land, develop it, and build on it. And we try to niche smaller communities so we don't compete against the larger builders in town. So all of our communities are 7 lots, 14 lots. We did one that was 24. But, we try to focus on buying land, developing it, and having that lot position, for a buyer. It's a big deal.
And it's nice to not have to worry about that from a buyer's perspective, especially in this price range and this type of home. A buyer is looking for usually a very specific thing. What do you let people choose? What is the process like if you want to build a home with Elevation? How do you work with clients?
So our process is we have a designer we work with. So we start on the front end. So if you want Mason, we're in, for example, lot 3. We have a floor plan spec for that lot, so you can come in and make minor changes to it. But you can start your selection process and the design with an actual designer, not not me or anyone that works for us. So So Heart and Lock does all of our design.
Okay.
And we do that on the front end. So we go through the entire design process prior to you starting a home. So it gives us a chance to lock in your price and really build your house efficient.
Love
So our cycle times tend to be better than our competition because of that front end. We call it pre-construction, but it's where we make all the selections and do all the design.
And you guys have that set up where it's on the lot, the way the house lays, it looks great. It works from a perspective of actually construction the way that it should. So I'm guessing you're looking at that. And then do you have a particular style for each subdivision? So what would you consider this home style? I'm curious.
This is really English arts and crafts.
Okay.
So with a modern flair. So that's one reason we spec the floor plans on each lot, is we want to pull in our communities and say that this looks like, all these houses look like they belong together in the same community versus, extremely different styles on every lot and different builders. So that was really the goal, is to keep that cohesion throughout.
Yeah, the curation here, it's beautiful. You pull up to this home, you've got the gas lanterns out front, and you've got the millwork that's really stands out from the curb. So I think people in this area and this price range want that. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and this community particularly, the lots are very large for this area. And they're flat, which, Georgia can be a little hilly. So.
Yeah, I'm from the mountains and there's not a lot of flat lots up there. So this is nice when we pulled in. It's a whole aesthetic. Well, tell me a little bit about the people that you're servicing. What, from a customer experience perspective, you're giving them the design, you're giving them the options, that pre-construction. So that takes a lot of the pressure of decision fatigue away. But what do you hear from people that really sets you guys apart? Once you're in the process, there's still a lot of design that has to be done here. How does that process work with Elevation?
So you mentioned process. We're process driven. So our clients tend to have a less stress build because, we're going to design the house exactly how you wanted it. And we're not going to change anything without a change order. So there's not going to be a back and forth or over budget. Those type of things during our build, and it just makes the process much simpler and easier.
How long did it take from start to finish for this house?
8 months.
8 months. That's amazing. I mean, this is, how many square feet is this house?
5,000.
5,000 square feet in 8 months. That's pretty impressive and very custom. So as we walk around here, after we get done chatting, we're going to look at some of the features, but I'm just looking around, just really beautiful. And you can tell that everything was picked with a thought in mind that went for the whole house to feel a certain way. So it's awesome. I would love to live here. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
All right. Well, tell me a little bit about some of the other projects that you're proud of. So you've got this subdivision here, but talk to me a little bit about some of the other things you've done in the last few years.
So we have a project on Lake Lanier that's finishing up, and that's been, there's actually 2 communities up there, but we've built, I think, about 22, 23, luxury homes up there that all had dock slips. So we're finishing that up. We're working on the last one now. And then we did a active adult community in Ackworth where we had 24 higher end ranch townhomes. So we finished those up a couple years ago. And then new projects, we have Mason, what you're at, the 7 lots, 2 were started. And then we have a community coming online in Canton called Provisions. It'll be 7 modern farmhouses, but, really trying to take a new angle on that because that's kind of been burnt out, So trying to change, put a little bit different flair on that. But again, the community, you can pull in and see all the houses are cohesive, different enough, more modern.
Yeah. It's only so much white shiplap we can do, right?
Right. Or white, black windows,
Yeah.
It's like we're trying not to do that.
It's interesting, the balance is one thing that I always like to ask builders about. People want what they want, which sometimes is very trendy. How do you balance that with having something that is classic, yet still pops in some of those trends?
One of the main things I do is I just try to do a lot of research and I went to the builder show and try to stay on the front end of things. And then, sometimes we go a little too far with it, and I get dialed back, but having a designer help with that and giving them some freedom to get us out of the box Whereas if they're working with so like this is a for sale home, we call it a market home. It's really a spec home, but it gives them some creative freedom to try some different stuff. Most of the time, it's a home run, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we're like, well, we need to dial that back a little bit, but just to try to get outside the box. So when you pull in one of our houses, it looks a little bit different. There's different trim profiles.
Yep.
There's just little things that make us a little bit different.
That's one of my favorite things about this business is the high-end custom stuff. So I have a background in doors, millwork, and one door that's an accent inside a home, or I know upstairs there's a hidden door we talked about a little bit. That is just something that can really make a moment in a house. And when you have that ability to do it, it is the thing that makes a custom home stand out, where a production home doesn't have that stuff usually.
Right. So one of my big things is first impressions, right? So the front door is the first impression. You touch and feel it. And, Magby did a good job building the front door. It's 2¼ inches thick. So when you open it, it's kind of substantial.
Yeah.
And there's something that, sets in a buyer's mind that, what was it about that front door? We put some texture on the door handle.
Yeah.
So you can it's a little bit more than visual, it's also touch and feel.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about Magby Contractor Supply. So I know that you actually have worked with them on windows, doors. You buy a lot of your millwork from them, all your premium door products they're building for you. You mentioned those front doors that really are the first thing you see when you pull up to the home. Talk to me a little bit about how they are different as other suppliers that you've used, or what stands out about Magby.
Well, from a premium door or window standpoint, they're always trying to find the next thing and get it in the contractor's hands. So they really do a good job of getting us new product and ideas in front of us and showcasing what they can do, So whether it's some of their new windows and, it's aluminum inside and out, pivot doors, they can do anything when it comes to that. So
yeah, and they have a custom door shop in Winder, which is close by, and pretty much you can sketch it on a cocktail napkin and they can make it happen, or in CAD or whatever. Have you done a lot of stuff where you're actually drawing it and then they're making it happen?
Absolutely. They're about to put in a door we sketched out, 6 months ago.
Yeah, I love that because it's always fun to try to do something a little different, like you said, than what you see on every house plan. And with front doors, you could do radius, you can do different glass. They have all those privacy glass options, so that's cool. They also have a custom millwork shop where they can do moldings. So do you ever have moldings sometimes that you draw out that's a little different, or are they coming up with something for you that's...
Yeah, well, the crown molding in this house, we're seeing crown molding kind of dialed back a lot in this era, but the crown molding in this house has a little bit different profile, and they were able to make that for us. The design team really knocked it out of the park with it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's beautiful. The ceiling in here is really cool. I love that. What are some of the biggest challenges that you face in building today? You mentioned, obviously, y'all built this whole thing in 8 months. That's amazing. But what are some of the things you run into as a builder, like just in construction in general?
Well, our biggest challenge as a company is land. The price of land is skyrocketed like houses have, but really it's the land and trying to find the right pieces that fit our, product line. That's our biggest challenge. On the construction side, now that, the pandemic's over, that, we were dealing with some timelines and lead times and stuff, and we've seen pricing kind of plateau and flatten out with that, and actually had some price decreases lately. But I would say our biggest challenge is land. Yeah,
and there's not going to be more of it. In this area you're building in is super hot. I mean, I can't think of very many metro areas that have much more. This little Roswell Alpharetta corridor is just a huge need for people with families that want to move out of downtown or commute, from here. So that's awesome. You guys are in a really hot area. Well, talk to me a little bit how the builder show. So I was there, and there was so much there to see.
It was overwhelming.
It was too much. Like, you can't even see the whole thing, even if you're there for a whole week. But what were some of the most exciting things you saw, products that you love, things that piqued your interest, or you think are going to be a cool new thing, or just anything you loved?
Well, I had a chance to meet up with the Magby team out there and go through some of the new window and door manufacturers. They're entertaining. That was a eye-opening on what they can do with glass and the size of the doors and
Yeah.
the motorized doors now. And,
Every year, it's like especially the folding doors and stuff, it's like they just keep getting taller and wider.
right.
How in the world do you install those is always what I think when I see it. That is a painful process for
Yeah.
someone. It's
I mean, a
tough.
crane maybe? I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. One of them I think we saw was like 24 feet wide maybe by 14 or 16 feet tall.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. That's awesome. So I know I actually saw the Quaker booth was a really cool booth that I saw. They had some cool stuff. I know Magby was working on showing you guys some stuff there. What about the pivot doors? Have you done a lot of pivot doors?
We've done a few. We did one, Magby did. It was 5 foot wide, 10 foot tall in the front of a remodel we did. But and then we've done a couple smaller ones. We've done a few.
Okay. And you're usually doing wood front doors, right?
For our communities, we are. We have done some steel. That door was steel. But most of the time we're doing a wood door. Again, it's just, it really fits this product.
Yeah. What about species of wood? What is this one?
It's naughty alder.
Okay.
So there's some character to it.
Yeah, I love that. I see a few knots in the bottom panel, which is always nice to see.
We've done some white oak too. Mahogany we haven't done much of lately, but mostly the naughty alder, just because it has that rustic flair that ties into the cedar that's on this home.
Yeah, and that's one thing about Magby. Like you can spec your style, you can spec your glass, and you can spec your species, and they can pretty much do anything. Like you said, the 2 1/4. So that's always nice for sure. Tell me about a client story or two that resonates with you that just makes it worthwhile what you're doing.
Well, this morning I had a client we built for 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and we still communicate. And he's going. We go to crawfish on Wednesdays this time of year, and he's meeting up with me to go to crawfish. So play some golf with him. But I would say, we maintain a relationship with a lot of our clients, and because the entire process from pre-construction to the end of warranty is practically 3 years. So that's a long time with somebody.
Yeah.
A matter of fact, when it's over, we'll communicate and say, man, it's like I haven't talked to you in 6 months. I went from talking to you 3 times a day.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about homeowner journey. So what advice would you have for a homeowner that is in Metro Atlanta? They're looking for a builder to build a custom home. What advice would you say for someone starting that journey?
I think some of the mistakes we see them make are they go and buy a piece of land without talking without talking to a builder, or maybe they go to an architect first and they have a budget that's X and they end up at Y. The first thing you should do is have a builder on your team when you start the custom home process. Interview some, find some that mesh. Pick one that's in the area you're looking, that's headquartered there, and find they're really your advisor.
Yeah.
Because if you have an architect, and we deal with some great ones, but if you have $1 million budget and it comes in at $2 million, the builder's always the one delivering that news. So it helps to have a builder on your team early.
Absolutely. I definitely agree with that. I've gotten a lot of architect plans that draw something that almost isn't possible, or either it is possible at a impossible budget.
Right.
So you got to be careful about that. And the homeowner's not going to know that. You don't know if that front door is $5,000 or $50,000, when you look at it, because it's not your game, right? You don't do that all the time. So I love that advice. It's really smart. What's a lesson? You built over 400 homes. What is a lesson that you would say you've learned, and what excites you the most about continuing to do this?
I like the relationships, that's the fun part. It's our guys, me, Justin, we don't feel like we go to work every day. It's, communicating with great people. Some of the lessons I've learned over the years is just to be respectful but diligent and try to make sure stuff happens accordingly.
Yeah, and you talked about, use the P word, processes. if you're going to win a business long term, especially with as much as goes into one home, but you've got 7 homes right here, you've got other subdivisions with homes going. If you don't have good processes and maintain them, it's tough.
Right. So recently, the last year, we've been really focused on our pre-construction process, and that's really where we've, because, building so many houses, we have the, from groundbreaking to finish covered, warranty covered, but the pre-construction was somewhere we were lacking. So we've been focused on that. We've actually created a couple different product lines. This house we call the Icon series, which is just, full luxury, unlimited budget, with a certain degree. Then we have one, this is one step down that really kind of keeps some guardrails on so we can keep a price to where it needs to be. That's called the Legacy series, which we've built the most of. And then we have a Reserve series, which is, when I say entry level, we realize that that's probably not for everybody, but it's just given the population a chance to buy a house that elevation built that has the same trades that maybe not finished out the same. We start about 250 a square foot for the lower series. And the next series up is about 350, and then the house like this is about 500, and we've built houses up to 800 a square foot or so.
In that middle range, because I think a lot of people are curious. They don't know what the difference between a luxury home with guardrails, as you said, and unlimited. What are some of the changes that, if you're in that middle series, like what are some of the things you see that take people to that next step?
The Icon series really is a difficult build from a structural standpoint. You're looking at the house we just finished framing had 70 different ridges and valleys. Where the Reserve series would have 7, right? More simpler design, built. We dress up the front a little bit, but millwork's scaled back. These are Lincoln clad windows in this house. You might get a Quaker vinyl or something like that in the Reserve series. But, like the cabinets in this house are 6 figures. In our lower end, you're looking at 30K allowance,
So it's really the micro details. But I think one thing that people miss because they don't know construction is a lot of times things like roofs or cut up, in the foundation, the angles, all those things, that adds so much to a build. It also aesthetically adds so much when you look at it, but it does rack up the difference in the price because the framing is just so much different, and all the work on that maybe isn't the final finishes. People think finishes is what's expensive, but a lot of times it's that type of framing stuff that really gets into the difference.
It's also size. So the most expensive upgrade in your house is square footage.
That's right.
That's it.
Last question. I know that every business and every job has tough days. So you talked about the relationship, and that's what's keeping you going. But what is the one thing that excites you the most right now that you're working on?
Probably this community. It's in an area where there's several luxury homes, and we're doing something a little bit different when it comes to architecture. So
it's beautiful. And there's one across the street we're going to go see that's under construction. This one's obviously on the market, ready to sell. And if someone is interested in learning more about Elevation Building Company, or if you're wanting a home in the Alpharetta or Roswell area where you guys build, talk to them about how they can find you.
Well, you can visit our website, elevationbuildingco.com, or find us on Instagram. It's elevation_building_co. And Facebook too. And you guys have beautiful photography and videography. They do a really good job on their marketing, and you can actually see what you're going to get, what they're building from their socials. So check them out. Thank you so much for your time, Eric. You're welcome.
I can't wait to walk around this beautiful subdivision and see what you guys are working on.
Perfect. Thank you.
That's it for this episode of the Grit Blueprint Podcast. For more tools, training, and industry content, make sure to subscribe here and follow me on LinkedIn and other social media platforms. To find out more about how Grit Blueprint can help you grow your business, check us out at our website, gritblueprint.com.